how a publisher can check if their distributor is working for them.
Ooh, okay. Let's do that.
You like that one?
Yep. And then part of our theme of distribution.
Did you flip it already?
Yep.
Okay.
We're live.
Oh, hi. I'm Joe Beal, the founder and CEO of Microcosm Publishing. I'm also the author of A People's Guide to Publishing, which distills what I've learned from selling millions of books over the past 28 years.
I'm Elly Blue, the Vice President of Microcosm. We started this podcast to share what we've learned with newer publishers, so you can learn from our mistakes. Or maybe you just want to learn about the publishing industry.
This week, we answer a reader question. How
Thanks, reader.
does a publisher... I was waiting for you to interrupt me again. How does a publisher know if their distributor is working for them? Elly, you're on.
Wait, me? That's a great question. So, it's really hard to know this because everything you hear from the distributor is like a wall of numbers that may or may not make any sense to you and may or may not add up, and you may or may not have any tools to evaluate that. So, my main expression here is empathy. We feel your pain. We've been there.
Yeah.
It can be really, really, really hard to tell if a distributor is working for you or not.
Honestly, I would say look at year-over-year numbers, and then look at what you're giving them to work with. Because, like every relationship, it takes two. It's some your fault, and it's some their fault.
I like that you say fault as if you're presupposing that this relationship is not going well.
Well, nobody asks this question if the relationship is going well. Nobody is like, should I leave my husband? If they're like content and happy.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, like, okay, first of all, the fact that you're asking that question is worth paying attention to.
Ooh, Elly, relationship counselor.
I'm just echoing what you said and taking credit for it.
Okay, gotcha, okay. So typical neurotypical behavior, got it.
Called out. Man, okay, this is, sorry, we have to have a little relationship conversation here.
I'm the publisher. I literally wrote the book on publishing.
Man,
rebuttal.
You're going to start pulling this...
Oh, I see. Going underhanded.
You're going to start pulling rank this way now, this late into our relationship, working relationship and otherwise. Well, okay, so if you and your distributor are having arguments like that and you're not giggling the whole time, that's another red flag.
We're supposed to be giggling?
We were.
Oh, crap. Well, I should have told you.
Yeah, I mean... your distributor is probably a much bigger company than you are. That
is almost always true.
And you are like one small part of what they do, and it's so easy for you to slip through the cracks, and it's so easy for them to make errors, almost always in their favor, weirdly.
Yeah, people have been pointing this one out a lot this year.
So, yeah, it does benefit from extra scrutiny from you. So, yeah, like, year-over-year numbers, like, how would you go about looking at that?
Look at what they did for you at this time last year, and then look at the year as a whole. So the advantage here is that these contracts are usually years long, 2 to 5 years typically is a duration of contract. And so, and they do this for both of your sakes. Like, if you're a nightmare client, like, they don't want to be saddled with you forever. And if, and you don't want to be working with them if they're holding you back, So you'd want to look at it when you're like, if I go to a store that really should have the books and they don't, maybe that's good because maybe they just sold out. But I would ask them questions like, oh, I see you don't have my books. And then, they can usually volunteer a lot of information like, oh, they said it wasn't available, or we've been having trouble getting that, or or the ideal scenario there is like, oh, we've been having trouble keeping that one on the shelves. But sometimes that's a polite way of saying, like, we don't want to tell you this bad news, or like, you want to look at it from understanding that your books aren't going to be on the shelf forever in every store, but if your distributor is doing their job and the store is a good match for what you're publishing, they should have at least some of your books on the shelf.
Right.
You know?
Like the distributor should be adding value to your program that you're at a greater rate than you could add it yourself or in a different way.
Yes, and that's a good way of putting it. And so a lot of times what people do, and we've done the same thing where we've gone to bigger places because we would think that they would do a better job because they have greater reach and access. And then that is true in some ways and not true in some other ways. And so you want to look at it sort of the other way around where you're like, do they understand fundamentally what this is, who it's for, what they're getting out of it, how to talk about it? Or is that sort of falling apart? And, you know, in a lot of cases, what happens at the bigger companies is they have such an incredible sales load that they're just going for the lowest hanging fruit because there's just no way that they can sell everything to every store. And, like, your entire catalog will never fall in the low-hanging fruit. Like, maybe you'll have a few titles. A lot of times, even the new titles aren't really going to get as much face time to the buyers as you would hope. And so you want to look at it from the perspective of, you know, how, like, could I do a better job on my own globally? Not just in this one store, but, like, looking at all the information available. You know, what is your synopsis?
Well, that's good advice. So, like, yeah, are they getting the books into the stores? Is your income exceeding your expenses for working with them?
Yeah.
Is, like, the kind of baseline, I feel like, calculation.
That's a big one. Like, are you getting paid every month? Yes.
Yeah. Like, are they paying you what they owe you? Are you paying more in expenses than you're earning in sales?
Right.
Or, like, almost as much? Like, would it be cheaper for you not to make these sales?
Right. Yeah, we've run into that one, too, where every sale can be at a loss.
Yeah.
And, you know, and so that's why you really want to work on your P&L from the ground up to be like, to budget in the distributor. And I worked with a publisher a few months ago where I was like, you need to make sure after the distributor's cut that when you're selling a book, you're going to have something beyond the cost of printing and the author's royalty.
Yeah, and like a lot of distribution contracts too will prevent you from selling your books directly to consumers or to other places that the distributors aren't going to sell them to. So like that's another thing that might not be working for you is if they are preventing you from making higher margin sales or other sales at all.
Right, yeah. That seems to be more and more common that now there are storage fees that we didn't experience when we were in the wild.
Just 5 years ago.
And now, yeah, fulfillment costs are higher, so that's how they pay for that. And then you just have more costs, so you want to budget that all in to your program.
And like, I feel like more relationship counseling, like a lot of times you'll have somebody that you work with at your distributor who like really gets you and is really great to work with, really listens to you, hears your concerns, can explain things to you in a way that makes sense to you and makes you feel good about it. But that doesn't mean it's working for you.
Right.
Just like, your partner might be so empathetic and great to talk to, but they stick you with all the housework and completely screw you while they go have free time and you don't. I'm just saying. This is not about our relationship.
I see. Thanks for joining us once again.
Please send your questions to podcast@microcosmpublishing.com so we can answer them on future episodes.
And please give us 5 stars on iTunes and everywhere else that podcasts are reviewed.
You can find us on the internet at microcosm.pub.
On Twitter at microcosm.
On Facebook at Microcosm Publishing.
On Instagram at microcosm_pub.
And here in Portland, Oregon on North Williams Avenue.
Thank you so much.
Have a wonderful week.